Howdy, fellers. Welcome back to the Forex Fortress, and we have a lot to talk about today as we follow up on the short-term and medium-term time frame analysis that we saw from the last couple days that we spoke about, and more importantly, following up on Bitcoin as well, and maybe even a little bit of link action, as that one is kind of the star of the show at the current moment of the last few hours. So with that said, as always, we'll start with good old Dixie, and what is Dixie doing? Heading down, looking like it's wanting to heading down to our next targeted range, of which that will be right in the low side of the range that we saw from February 2018 at low $89, in line with these nice horizontals right here, of which you could maybe even say we've already somewhat tested that region, although I do think it would imply a slight downside more, down to about 89 even. But I'm looking for bouncies within this region. Now, long-term, coming back down to this region is, not all that healthy. Of course, long-term weekly death cross is still very much relevant as well. And we are seeing the culmination of the big bad breakdown from that 92.25 region that we highlighted about a couple months ago. Or actually, I guess more than a couple months ago now. So most importantly with that, I would be saying that yes, short term still a little bit more downside, but I am looking for bouncies off these regions right here, and probably a bigger bounce off those regions, as I would be looking for a medium term reversal at the very least, maybe even a long term reversal. But still, macro is very much to the downside, and I will be macro bearish on this as long as we're below what is this 92? Yeah, that 92 pivot that we spoke about. And then, of course, going over here to the monthly macro, I would be looking for likely test down maybe over the next 6 months to a year down to the 200 simple, which is not fucking good, but it likely does take its time. So with that in mind, let's start off with good old Aussie dollar and see what Aussie dollar is saying today. Start off with the very short-term timeframes right here. And what do you know? Aussie dollar heading up and actually not just testing our top side target from yesterday, yes, but actually exceeding it. And more importantly, did we see the daily close above there? No, but right at the strike is usually a good sign, and the weekly's looking really fucking good. So technically speaking, I want to see this actually closed above on a Friday, but the way that this is looking right now, it's looking very, very good. Momentum oscillators are further supporting this. Weekly RSI tells a story here, and if I did call right now, yes, I do think that it will clear this level and head down towards, or well, not down, but up towards our next long-term target of 80 cents. But in the short term, what would be the next relevant regions? It would be right around here, right at this area from, actually, no, it's not going to be right there. It's going to be right here, in fact, right at 79 cent even, actually. So short-term, medium-term, and long-term all looking good. 4 hours, just continuation. So I guess you could say bullish on this one. Moving on to CAD dollar, what do we see? I think this one we were bullish on yesterday, looking for a move up to our next targeted region right here at about 79, just above 79, about 79.25 it looks like. That target has been met. Short-term, I would be looking for a little bit of downside fill at the area down between that area and about 78.5. And then on a daily, what are we looking like? Daily is a little bit more under pressure. Could I be looking for a greater pullback from this region? Let's actually reference the weekly for that. I'm very much undecided on this one actually for CAD dollar. It's definitely one of the weakest pairs that we typically do look at, but and it has hit that long-term downtrend on the monthly coming in all the way from, this was May 2015. So I am very hesitant to be looking for further continuation above this level as it is. I do think that it probably spends a little bit of time going sideways and down and likely exploring the downside here. So short-term, I'll be looking for 78.50-ish region, 78.60, probably a small bounce there. But ultimately, I do think that it spends some time range between here and the low of, I think it was last week at 77.5. And then technically speaking, I probably would actually favor the downside long term, just based off of the long-term trend here. Most importantly, we do see that monthly Stokes have been going up this whole way, while price action is still within the context of a downtrend. So I really don't like that. And also, we will have potential hidden bearish divergence present here if it does top out within this region at the end of the month. But that's obviously a monthly idea, so it's probably going to take, well, at the very least, we'd see it at the very least until end of February. So another 3-4 weeks, and then on top of that, really have to look into February, I suppose. But I'll be looking for this one to more or less go sideways and then down. I do think that it's probably topped out here at the very least. Aussie dollar, however, does look more strong, and Aussie dollar and CAD dollar do trade quite lovingly together. So if Aussie dollar does take out that next relevant level to the upside that we just spoke about, then perhaps I would reconsider this CAD US dollar analysis. But for now, no, this one certainly is a cut below the rest, actually. Moving on to Swiss franc dollar, what do we look at? What are we looking at? Again, monthly still very much bullish, obviously, but nothing's changed there. Weekly still very much bullish right there. And did we actually hit our next target? Yeah, we did. We did hit our 114 and 10 cent target, and I would still be bullish on the weekly, actually. Daily is perhaps a short-term pullback. Let's go down to the below-term timeframes, like a 4 hour to judge this one. Yeah, I would be looking for a short-term pullback here, likely back down towards about 113.55 region, but long-term, I still like it. This one's bullish bullish on just about all time frames except for the short-term time frames. So realistically, short-term pullbacks likely do get bought back on up, and I don't even feel too compelled by the short-term time frames anyways. I'm just kind of calling, you know, what would be a relatively normal pullback there. Most importantly, long-term, based off of that next pivot that we're looking at right around 114, I would start to judge the next big breakout targets towards about 116, a little bit above 116 on a weekly. So I do remain more importantly bullish on the higher term time frames, and I put a lot more faith in that, or not that you need faith, but more importantly, you know, I'd be looking for that area essentially. Moving on to euro dollar, what do we have over here? 123. So slowly working our way up to that 124.5 cent target. We've already hit our 123.5 cent target right here. Golden cross on the weekly looking good. So weekly is still looking very much strong. Also taking out last week's high after a little bit of a sideways consolidation. All of these are a good thing and do maintain my bias for long-term bullishness in this one, even though I'm not so happy about that. Looking at the daily right here, continuation, so bullish on the daily as well. What about a 4 hour? Yeah, 4 hours continuation here. You know, maybe extremely short-term time frames come down to like 123, but ultimately I'm bullish on all time frames here, 4 hour, daily, and weekly, with the next highlighted area at about 123.65, and then above there 124.5 would be my next two major areas to be aware of. Moving on to pound yen, or actually Swiss franc. Did we do Swiss? Yeah, we did Swiss franc dollar. Okay, nice. Moving on to pound yen, what do we have? Okay, again, I do still favor the downside here. Did we fill out the downside from yesterday? Let's actually get rid of this for now. It's not really relevant for this time frame. Yes, we did get our target yesterday from the at the 21 exponential moving average. I would still actually look for a little bit lower on this price action down to the 55, which is 138.85. Weekly is, yes, under pressure still. I still don't I still go with the former on this one actually. Looking at a 4 hour. 4 hour actually does have a little bit of short-term upside. So short-term probably does test back up maybe towards 140.75, but long-term I still err on the downside, but less inclined on this one, and kind of similar over here with pound dollar, although this one I think is a little more obvious on the short-term timeframes. Yes, I would be looking for a short-term move back down to 135.62. Moving on to a daily, what do we see right here? Daily wants a little bit of downside here as well, 135.45. So anywhere down there between the daily and the 4 hour targets is fine for a short-term move. And then looking at the weekly, I am not as bearish on the weekly is the problem, and this trend line right here is not relevant for this time frame, so let's just get rid of it. And I still look at the 377 to the upside as a relevant area here, so nothing really changed on the weekly. I would be a lot more inclined to actually switch around to being bullish on pound dollar versus pound yen actually. No, actually, would I stick with that? Yeah, I would stick with that, yes. But both of them are still some of the more perennial shitty coins here. Looking at the monthly, is there anything that we're missing? Yeah, I simultaneously, I want to see both a move to the upside and test around like 138, a little bit above 138, and probably reject from there and maintain the downtrend and then work its way down. So I suppose I still do think that it will reach up for that, for that upwards target, but short term is very much down, absolutely. Short term move is pretty obvious right here, but does it get reaccumulated in this sideways uptrend here? Perhaps yes. I mean, this one can come down to quite a fair bit and actually still maintain these higher lows. So no big issues right there. Moving on to yen dollar. Short term obviously down, but looks like we're going to be a little bit late to this party in order to actually get that one right. I would be looking for a short term bounce off the 55 here on the 4 hour, but that's only on the 4 hour. With momentum also is turning down, while 4 hour RSI is also looking pretty wrecked. I would look for that bounce to get sold into and target the next horizontal, which is 96.73, our targeted region coming into this week, or maybe at the end of last week, I think it was. Let's go over here to a daily and see what this one's looking like. Yeah, daily is a clear, wow, daily's looking pretty nasty here. So I would stick with those targets. In fact, I'd even extend the downside target to 96.80-ish region, probably just above this horizontal right here. And then long term, do I still favor the weekly? Yes, I do actually. Yes, I do. And I still do look for long term the levels just right around about just below 99 to get hit, but that's going to take some time obviously. And momentum also is here, like RSI still telling the story, still looking more or less fine, at least in my opinion. Weekly Stokes looking okay as well. So I would still favor long-term upside, but short-term downside here. Moving on to, do we want to check out NASDAQ? We were short-term bearish on this one this morning, and that was warranted, yes. But I do think that it has a little bit more to go here. Let's go down to a 4 hour right here. Yeah, it did hit the 200 simple 200 exponential moving average, so probably does try a little bit of a bounce here, but I'll be looking for it to kind of grind this area out, bounce a little bit around this region between the 200 simple and also anywhere around this level at about just below 1270, or sorry, 12700 that is, and grind this area out, and then we'll come back to it maybe on Thursday or Friday. So again, probably does test a little bit lower and grinds that area out, but I'm not necessarily bearish on this either. Short term, yes, it is down. Weekly is still fine. Weekly's still up. Although we do potentially have bearish divergence if it does close as a top, but that is still a couple days away. So you know what? I'll reserve judgment on this one long term for a while. But if I had to call it right now, I do think, you know, short term a little bit of downside, but long term still fine. All right, moving on to what else do we got here? Gold, yes, that's right. So we hit our 1950 target on gold, actually exceeded it by about $9-10 right there. And I would still be actually looking for a further upside on this one, just past $2,000 to about 2030 to 2050ish region. Probably going to take some time. Let's see what a daily looks like as well. Daily looks like a little bit of downside, perhaps maybe all the way back down towards the, let's see what the 4 hour says to get this level. No, I'm actually not getting much from this. You know, maybe back down to like low 1900, like 1910 region. Could probably just fit a nice little horizontal in right here. There we go. Yes, we do see plenty of price action kind of overlaid around that region. But long term, I actually do still favor the upside here. So fair enough. Short term down, long term up. Moving on to actually cryptos now. Let's go check. And I want to keep this video as short as possible so that my upload time is as fast as possible. We'll quickly check out Link, and then we'll check out Bitcoin. But Link's looking really fucking good right now. Jesus Christ, man. Powerful move right there. Let's go on to a daily really quickly. And more importantly, breaking above the last high in November 2020. That is going to initiate targets much higher towards likely $18 over time. And personally speaking, I mean, this just looks like one massive reaccumulation. Higher lows along this is going to imply long-term constructiveness. So yes, you know, I would have a target towards $18, but long-term, ultimately, I do think that it is very likely to break onto the upside. This is Link versus dollar, though, not to be confused with Link versus Bitcoin, which is not the same story. And with that said, let's go over here to Bitcoin and see what Bitcoin's doing so that we can follow up on this. So Bitcoin, I believe, did close above the 35,000 area right here on the 4 hour and 12 hour. So I do still favor the upside. More importantly, I would put the focus here on the 3-day time frame. And, you know, if this condition is met, I feel a lot more confident about looking for, you know, 38,000 or 40,000 over the next week or so. And that would be closing the 3-day above the topside Toronto band once again, which is 32,450 as of the current moment in time. Technically speaking, yes, we did break structure to the upside here, and that does have a measure move in line with the Fibonacci extension right around the 2 spot at, around the low, or sorry, around the mid $38,000 region. So I do like that area for a nice targeted region right here. And, you know, in the meantime, could we have like some sort of a swing failure pattern, which I think is a really good question to be asking. And yes, absolutely. But what would be the obvious things now for a swing failure pattern? Because here's the thing with this breakout, and I do want to do a little bit of a small deep dive here. I want to keep this video as short as possible again too, but volume on this breakout is very lackluster. This is not breakout volume. So that is a warning signal in and of itself, not a death signal, of course. And of course, price action matters more than anything else. But what I look for now is one of two things to happen if this is going to turn into a bit of a swing failure pattern and then target areas back down to the 55 here on the 4 hour, which is, or actually maybe not that low, but in like the mid $31,000 region as we spoke about in this morning's video. And that would be this. If you do see a closure below this high right here on the close, on the closing strike on the 4 hour, could use a 2 hour as well, maybe, but I'd feel a lot more confident with the 4 hour, and that would be 34,500. If you see that, then yes, I would constitute this as a swing failure pattern, and I would be targeting at the very least a quick move down to the 21 exponential moving average right here, based off of the what would be confirmed as 4 hour bearish divergence. Not in there just yet because this is obviously not confirmed as a local high, but it would be present if that condition were to be met. Or taking out the last 4 hour low probably does it as well, but obviously waiting for closures, as we just kind of dissected, is going to be a lot more forthright. So with that in mind, I do still favor the upside here overall, but I would be cognizant of this because this breakout is not usually what you're looking for, actually. So I would be defensive against this. However, as long as the 3-day condition is met, I do still favor the upside, and that trumps everything else that we just spoke about with that potential swing failure pattern in mind. So with that in mind, I do want to wish you the best of the best, and the happiest of the happiest. We'll be back on over here playing some Red Dead on good old Twitch. You're welcome to join on in if you want. If not, all good. And with that said, take care, partner, and until next time.